It's v.h.s.x. What do you mean?
Alright everybody, welcome back to a brand new video. Today I wanted to actually talk about MintSkull's debate with ScottJund, and I wanted to talk about why I agree with MintSkull in this current debate here, and MintSkull's response to ScottJund. So I want to say that MintSkull is right. Scott does ignore that the early game can still lead to a massive loss, because the game truly isn't over until the end screen, basically, with the leaderboard and everything. Ultimately, like, a game can completely shift with any decision. It can completely shift with any sort of strategy, play, mistake, blunder, whatever have you. Anything can shift the game completely depending on who makes the mistake and who fumbles. Especially even if you try to play perfectly, because ultimately, as somebody who's gone for as many wins as I try to go for, like, I'm somebody who focuses mainly on improving at my killers, like, that I play, that who I main, and also somebody who wants to go for wins, like, as my form of what I find fun, which is probably obvious, but you get the idea. For me personally, like, I've seen many matches go completely different ways on both ends. Like, you can completely, like, miss a hit that can literally cost you the game. Like, it has gotten to that point when I played a lot of games where, like, if me missing a swing would completely, like, lose me a match, because getting that person down before a certain threshold of time would cost me the game, and vice versa. Like, I could be completely losing, and then, like, one mistake from their side can completely shift my match all the way around to my side, because I was able to, say, get somebody down, eliminate somebody else, and then it's down to maybe 2 people or something like that, whatever have you. And we've seen this happen even before with killers like Quiet Kills, where, you know, it looks like it's about to be over and then he makes a comeback right at the end. Like, we've all had matches like that before. We've also seen matches like that before. It is very possible that just because the early game was bad does not necessarily mean that you're going to completely lose your game. So I also agree with MintSkull here that he mentions that it's harder because it can't leave, which leads to more gen rushing and to overall more chasing. I completely agree with that point as well. I think that is completely correct. Like, literally, because they are in the match longer, because of the fact that the people that did quit were removed from the game, that they were completely just done with their match, that would open up the opportunity for you to get more wins overall. So I do think that the go next prevention has overall just caused a much bigger issue because of that, obviously, you know. And then also, let's also combine the idea that there is more time on hooks anyway, so you're getting an additional 10 seconds, I think, on both, so you're getting about 70 or 80 seconds on a hook, I think comparatively. And I've actually spoken about this in an odds video, that, you know, these extra hooks, time on hooks has really negatively affected the M1 killers, really affected the low tiers. And that, in combination with the idea that they can't really quit as easily, may also add on to a bit of that pressure that they can apply, because some people can just go back on gens and realize, like, no, we can actually win this because of whatever reasons, right? Because the game really can go either way. So I do agree with MintSkull on that idea. So also, healing has been buffed. And I agree with the both sides here, Scott and MintSkull here. Healing has been buffed, especially with botany knowledge that they reduced. They completely removed, I should say, like, the downside that I thought was the most balanced part of botany knowledge. Like, I thought was the golden standard for what survivor perk balancing should look like, where there's a give and a take, and you actually have to create, like, you know, have decision making when trying to create builds and create different sort of play styles and things like that. In my perspective, what I found to be the most like, depth, you know, the potential for depth there was something that I was hoping that they would lean more into, to try to make Survivor at least more interesting, at least to make it look more appealing, I guess, for people, like because as myself, who doesn't enjoy the side at all, at least knowing that there are some ways to, like, have depth in your builds and actually be able to think outside the box, when trying to construct the build would actually kind of feel like you're actually doing something more interesting with that side. But when you dumb it down in this kind of way, when you remove a lot of the depth from the side, it just leans more into this idea that it is just very easy handheld kind of feeling when you're seeing the, like, you know, matches like this, or with survivors and stuff like that, or at least going against them. It just kind of seems like they're handed a lot of free things. And when perks kind of just have no downsides in that kind of way, where there isn't a give and a take, where there's healing speed for others but lower for yourself, like that to me was good. Like I felt like killer perks work that way, where it's like you can activate this perk, but it has something that needs to happen before you can do that. Or you can have this perk, but then it also nerfs something else. Like a good example is like Dark Arrogance. Like you can vault 25% faster, but then you're stunned for 25% longer. So like you have to like be able to dodge the pallet stuns very well, and then also be able to like be you know, buff up your vaulting and also buff up your chasing. So it's very good in that way. So I think that is the sort of concept that I was really a fan of, and they just completely dumbed it down, removed it, and now they just have a flat 50% bonus with nothing. You know, it doesn't require you to do anything, and that's unfortunate. And it stacks with everything, so you can apply it to Will Make It, and then you'll have 150%. Or if you can stack it onto other perks like I can't even remember, like you can use it on Resurgence. Somebody with a Resurgence are getting an insta heal, or you can use it with the med kit and you have Resurgence and you get an insta heal. Like there's a lot of things here that I have to say just really dumb down the side, and that's not something that I'm a fan of. So I do also agree that with MintSkull, if he has mentioned this, that healing has always been busted. It really has. It has always been busted, as we've seen with Botany. Well, not Botany specifically, but the healing meta. We've seen this plenty of times, that the healing has already always been insane. Like and we already know that. Especially, like I've said many times, with Resurgence that never needed a buff. I mentioned this plenty of times with other things like that. Like some of these perks really just did not need buffs. Like they were perfectly fine perks, they were perfectly good, and for some reason they just get buffed. I still don't know why. I still don't really understand, you know, what motivated behavior to make these kinds of changes, especially because they're once again, it just didn't seem like it made a lot of sense. Like the perks were perfectly fine. Like there are perks that people don't really use at all, that I think really could use more of a change, and I think a change that's sooner. But maybe if we're lucky, they're focusing on that, but who knows, honestly. And the new meta makes killer harder, as we know. Anti-healing pretty much has been nerfed in the past. Like Slobby Butcher is a good example of that. Mangled in general has been nerfed in the past, and it pretty much, with these healing changes, it circumvents all those downsides. Like you don't necessarily need, if you run anti-healer, it pretty much doesn't matter. Like it pretty much does nothing. It pretty much does nothing against it. I mean, if you're being able to heal at 150 to 200% healing speeds compared to running something like Leverage, you're still at 150. And if you're running it with like Mangled or something like that, it's also an additional, what, 25, which still is like boosted with the rest of the the perks. It pretty much doesn't matter against it, so that's not very good. And overall, like I've said, like when people talk about killer, it just seems like they're always gravitating and specifically focusing on just the high tiers. And it's like, yeah, that's wonderful and all, but that's also a completely different experience for everybody else who plays killer. You know, like while most people are incentivized to focus on, you know, playing the more higher tiers, there are still people that want to play low tiers. There are some people that would just find it more interesting to play who they want to play. And I'm assuming that that's like sort of the shorthand that survivors are using, that they're trying to say that it's, oh, this is killer overall is somehow overpowered, even though it's only what 1 to 2 or 3 out of the entire roster, which still means that they're objectively incorrect. Now, when it comes down to a conversation like talking about how survivors have been overbuffed and handheld and all these kinds of things, with all these different changes. I think there's much more evidence to prove that than there really is on the killer end, especially because there has been so many nerfs that have arrived. I mean, we can, off the top of my head, you could talk about hook grabs, you could talk about the hatch grabs, you could talk about the healing metas, you could talk about the totems getting immediate, like totems had barely a fighting chance when Thrill of the Hunt got buffed, and then those perks were completely removed immediately. Like, that barely lasted a couple weeks. You're like, oh, it's gone. It's like that. You know, it was the one time I think that totems actually were reusable. I was shocked to see that, so that was cool for a little bit. But we can also compare it to other metas that we've seen in the past that like on Survivor, that have lasted for a very long time, like a very long time, and they would just never change. Now, obviously, is it the past? And we probably shouldn't be focusing on the past. We should be looking towards the future when it comes to the changes that come to DB, of course. But going off of the, you know, the context and going off of what we have seen in the past, we do have to kind of consider everything to kind of try to make an educated guess. But obviously, we just kind of have to hold our breath in a lot of ways too. So I also want to mention that I agree with MintSkull as well, that the spawns are most likely affecting the gen speeds, and as he's shown in his own video, these spawns are not working correctly in terms of the new changes. Like, they are supposed to spawn together, but they don't actually spawn together. And then if they do spawn together, it's sort of which was mentioned in Mr. Headache's video, which was the idea that it still really did not affect the gens much. Like, it's on paper it's supposed to be a buffer killer, but it really isn't, right? Because if you can't find the any survivor close enough to, you know, say you end up going in the wrong direction, to kind of give you guys an example, if you end up going in the wrong direction and there's 3 people on one gen, that means that if you walk into that direction, can't find anybody, on paper you're pretty much just going to just lose one gen right off the bat with zero hooks, 0 injures, 0 everything to show for it. And that in itself is not great. Obviously, I don't think that most people want to go up against it. And also, the changes are countered by an offering, which is also a very valid point that MintSkull also brings up, is that the changes are countered by an offering. So it makes it pretty much non-existent for both ends. You know, you could say that, like, while you can say that it is a killer buff, it actually is a killer nothing burger, because it really is nothing happening. And it really does not change anything. And I also mentioned changes like these when it came to the Ghostface quote-unquote buffs. Like, people are very quick and very loose when it comes to the term buff, and that I think is a very just like not great when it comes to actual buffs, because like a real buff is going to be like an actual change that people can look at and actually really look at and say, hey, that's an actual change that people wanted, that's an actual change that objectively makes it better. And I don't believe that these spawn changes really were that. And that's just my perspective on that. And low tier killers continue to suffer even more, which is another important point that I want to bring up here, is that the lower tiers consistently are getting like just kicked in the stomach, body slammed, pushed in the locker, you know, swirlied. Like, they're just not ever getting a chance to shine in these metas, man. They never do. Like, it's kind of unfortunate, you know. Like, I think that for those people who love Kenneki and Blight and Nurse and stuff like that, that's great, but I don't think that every single person in the killer community are those people. Like, I think that a lot of us want to play other characters, or a lot of us have come into the game because of the licenses and because of those characters being like their favorite movie or their favorite representation of that, in terms of Ghostface specifically, or like with Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that. Like, a lot of people want to play the characters from their favorite movies, and I don't think that they want to specifically load up the game to just play the high tiers and to specifically use quad slowdown all the time. I just don't think that is a possibility with everybody, at least from my perspective. I just don't think that is a thing. I can only speak for myself, obviously, but I would prefer to play you know, characters from movies I've enjoyed, and that was what I find fun, and that's why obviously I'm not trying to play other characters like Blight. Well, I mean, which I might enjoy playing Kaneki. I think at one point I was interested in the Tokyo Ghoul. I hope that's the right name. I had to pause there for a moment because I was like, I hope I didn't say the wrong name, because I know there's like a bunch of different like anime that are like kind of horror themed. So anyway, so one other thing that I want to add on to the conversation is that the survivors are trying to win, plus the new meta that we have going on with the healing and stuff like that is obviously adding to the lower tiers getting even weaker, which is one of the biggest problems I think with these changes, and that's why objectively killer is getting harder for those people. And that's the thing that I really want to bring up with conversations like these. It's like when we talk about killer balancing like this, like a lot of the time we have to remember that the ones that really suffer the hardest are going to be the low tiers, and those are the ones that need the most changes. And what I try to do is at least display like a concept that could work for the lower tiers and also not affect the higher tiers too much, so that it sort of raises up the bar for the low tiers to actually come up to at least a mid-level where it, like, you can use a low tier and still feel like you're still like powerful, like you still don't feel like you're powerless, which is the biggest issue with the changes that we have nowadays. But this is what like my thoughts are so far. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'll probably cover Scott's response after after this one, because I had watched MintSkull's response to Scott, and then Scott responded, so I'll probably watch Scott's response to kind of see, you know, if I agree or disagree. And appreciate you guys for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, comment, subscribe to all the YouTube things. You can check out the links in the description to support the channel. Consider becoming a member for exclusive content, and consider joining the Patreon, and following on Twitch to watch me play Killer live. I will see you guys in the next video.